Depression, a mental illness, troubles roughly 3.8% of the global population, and that number is on the rise. Surprisingly, the medical treatments currently available for depression are very limited and not always effective. Today's book offers a groundbreaking perspective on understanding depression, suggesting that inflammation, a common experience that all of us must have experienced, might be a contributing factor to this condition. So if you're interested in learning why managing inflammation is so crucial, or you want to know more about depression and how to improve your overall health, tune in today. Welcome to A Book with Bubble Tea. With your host, Mira He. Here, I share takeaways from East Asian books on parenting, startups, and self-growth. Seeking insights beyond the typical English shelf? Want to be a better parent and achieve more in life? You are in the right place. Grab your bubble tea and let's dive in. Hi everyone, welcome to the new episode of A Book with Bubble Tea. I'm your host, Mira He. How are you doing today? In today's episode, I am excited to share a medical book titled The Inflamed Mind, a radical new approach to depression. The author, Edward Bulmore, is a renowned British neuropsychiatrist, neuroscientist, and academic. He is the head of the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Cambridge. And since 2005, he's also been working with GSK, the pharmaceutical company, leading their clinical research unit for experimental medicine and early drug development with a focus on immunopsychiatry. So yes, it's another unusual book featured on this show written by an English author. And you might guess it's because I am currently troubled by something that pushes me to seek answers beyond the conventional. This time, it's about my son again. Yes, him again! But it's not about his emotional swings this time. It's about his body. He's been experiencing mysterious pains in his feet, knees, head, and tummy. These symptoms don't fit the description of growing pains. We have no idea what's going on really. And all we know is that he's been crawling on the floor for the past week. It's very puzzling and worrying. I mean, Joshua has severe egg and peanut allergies since he was born. Somehow, after he recovered from COVID 2 years ago, his immune system just became very unstable. His allergies would flare up randomly, and, one of the symptoms seemed to be tummy pain. So I guess I wouldn't be so worried if he didn't have these allergies. But considering how his body reacts, it always causes a lot of stress for me and my husband. We know his recent mysterious tummy pain is probably not a big deal, to be honest. I have seen enough doctors to doubt that they can even give me a reason or an answer, but still, there's always this underlying fear of what if this is a symptom of something more serious, or, what should I do? What could it be? This worry prompted me to start searching and looking above and beyond. And it's today's book that I found quite interesting and insightful, even though it's not directly relating to my son's thing. But I just want to share with you because I really feel it brings a lot of insights to, how we can improve our overall health. So what is the key idea of the book? Traditionally, we think that problems with the body originates from the body and problems with the mind originates from the mind. However, this book challenges this dualistic perspectives, arguing it's not the case. And the big idea here is that inflammation, our body's experiences, can actually lead to changes in our feelings and behavior, particularly in relation to depression. The traditional medical view separates the body and mind, treating them as distinct entities. But the author, Edward Bulmore, contends that this separation is a mistake. He presents mounting evidence that our bodies and minds are interconnected, with inflammation potentially being a primary cause of depression in many cases. Before diving deeper, let's just quickly define what inflammation is, shall we? So inflammation is the body's natural response to injury or infection, initiating an immune response that resulting in inflammation. This process should end once the injury heals or the infection is cleared. Inflammation is our body's way of protecting itself, evident in symptoms like redness, swelling, or pain following an injury, such as, a twisted ankle or conditions like tonsillitis, which is inflammation of the tonsils. And I'm sure all of us must have experienced it. It's not possible to live in this world without experiencing some form of inflammation. The author shares a personal story about feeling depressed after having a wisdom tooth extracted due to infection. Though he didn't want to have the surgery, I don't think anyone would like to have the surgery, and certainly he didn't enjoy it during the process, but he said his mood was pretty much okay during the entire process. But right after the surgery, he found himself just wanted to rest and sleep and get away from everyone else. He just wanted to be in complete isolation until he felt better again. Fortunately, it didn't take long. After a good night's sleep, the depressed feeling pretty much left him and he resumed back to normal. However, this idea, which seems so natural to us that, when our body doesn't feel well, we often naturally just feel depressed or unhappy and just want to be in isolation, actually doesn't seem so natural in the medical world. The author recounts his encounter in 1989 with Mrs. P, a patient with severe rheumatoid arthritis, a condition where the immune system attacks joint lining, causing chronic inflammation. You can often see distorted joints, and patients often go through a lot of pain. And certainly Mrs. P was a severe case. She's been suffering for years from rheumatoid arthritis, and she could hardly walk. But beyond what's obvious, Mrs. P also told the author that she's been feeling very depressed. She didn't have any energy. Nothing could possibly make her happy. She woke up multiple times at night. She felt pessimistic and had guilty thoughts. It's clear Mrs. P also suffered from chronic depression. The author thought he made a discovery and was eager to share with his senior physician about it. However, to his surprise, this did not surprise his senior. His senior simply replied with, "Depressed? Well, you would be, wouldn't you?" The idea is that surely anyone like Mrs. P, who suffers so much physically, would feel depressed because they realize they are a step closer to the graveyard. So, depression is considered a product of mind's interpretation of our suffering. As a result, though both the author and Mrs. P knew Mrs. P suffered from rheumatoid arthritis and chronic depression, no one actually linked the two together. Why is that, you might ask? This perspective stems from the dominant view of the body and mind in the 20th century, which held that they are completely separate. The organ controlling our mind, which is our brain, was considered to have immune privilege. Immune privilege means that nothing from the immune system can affect the brain, thanks to the blood-brain barrier, or called BBB, which protects our brain from bodily inflammation. This dualistic way of thinking, which separates body and mind, was first proposed by Descartes. And I really get the feeling that the author is opposed to this dualist idea. I feel like, a third of the book is actually devoted to challenging this notion. So, under this dualistic belief, Mrs. P's inflammation was seen merely as a physical issue. The reason for her depression was attributed to her severe illness, which led her to believe she was a step closer to the deathbed, with the discomfort and pain in her body further depressing her mind. Back then, no one paused to consider that perhaps it's not the fear of imminent death that depresses a person, but rather that inflammation itself directly causes depression in our brain. It seems quite apparent that, we must have missed out something, because about 25% of arthritis patients are depressed, and about 1/3 of patients with major depression show signs of inflammation. Yet, the best first-line medications for treating depressions are not very effective. The prevailing view is that depression is triggered by an imbalance of serotonin in the brain. So the treatment involves prescribing selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or, SSRIs, to help patients improve. But, only 27% of patients show improvement after taking the SSRIs. So with so many people suffering and so little improvement with current medications, there must be something that's completely overlooked by the medical community that could better explain the cause of depression. Fortunately, the medical community has started to notice more and more evidence showing that this dualistic perspective is incorrect. Our brain is not only not immune privileged, but inflammation can very well be the cause of many mental diseases. The better we understand this, the more doors it can open for us to design new medications or treatment plans. Imagine you are talking about millions of people's lives here. So it sounds really good and wonderful, but we haven't answered the most crucial question here. How could inflammation possibly make us depressed? Remember, until very recently, the mainstream belief was the brain protected by the BBB is considered immune privilege, right? We talked about it many times, shielded from inflammation. However, with the advancement in technology, this idea has been completely debunked, revealing that inflammatory proteins in the blood can indeed penetrate the BBB. The BBB, once considered the Berlin Wall separating the body and brain, just like the real Berlin Wall in life, has also collapsed. But why does our body produce these inflammatory proteins? To understand this, we need to delve into how our immune system functions. Within our body, white blood cells protect us by fighting off external intruders. And within white blood cells, macrophages play a crucial role. They are our body's frontline defense against invaders. Typically quiet and dormant, and each macrophage has its own assigned territory to guard. But once invaders are detected, the macrophages guarding that particular area will spring into action, vowing to eliminate all the intruders. However, we must understand that although our macrophages are fearless and powerful, viruses and bacteria from outside should also not be underestimated. If macrophages are not vigilant, viruses and bacteria can quickly multiply and completely overwhelm us. This means that whenever there is a war, macrophages will immediately call for backup so that the macrophages stationed in other parts of our body can also come to rescue. And the signal that macrophages release into the bloodstream to send out this "help me" message is cytokine. Cytokine travels through the bloodstream to different locations to request assistance. Wherever it goes, the local macrophages become enraged, embarking on a mission to kill all intruders. And this cytokine is the inflammatory protein. Since we now know cytokines can also travel through our brain, they similarly provoke the brain's macrophages as well. And the brain's macrophages is called microglial cells into, wanting to devour all the enemies. However, while it is certainly commendable for our macrophages to protect our bodies, they often do so at all cost. They operate like armies adopting a scorched earth strategy in warfare, bombing indiscriminately until nothing is left. Yes, all the enemies are killed, but so are many of our own cells and nearby nerves. Although we still don't fully understand the complete mechanism of how inflammation causes depression, we're very certain that when inflammation occurs in the brain, it changes our mood and impairs our learning ability. Inflammation reduces the supply of serotonin, which is a transmitter between nerve cells, causes changes in our emotion processing neural networks, and leads to feelings of depression. It also damages the connections where, synapses between nerve cells, making them less capable of learning patterns of information. If inflammation is chronic rather than temporary, it is highly likely that our nerve cells are constantly being bombarded and damaged by our own immune system. This makes it not at all surprising to know that inflammation can lead to depression or Alzheimer's or other mental diseases, considering the damage it makes in our brain. This is what happened to many patients with rheumatoid arthritis or even leaky gut syndrome because constantly their bodies are inflamed. Their immune systems constantly set fires of inflammation throughout their entire bodies. Of course, this doesn't mean that all cases of depression are caused by inflammation, nor does it simply mean that inflammation always leads to depression. Certainly, more research is needed to fully understand the mechanism and how it works. However, this insight opens up a new avenue for scientists and researchers to explore depression and the possibility of a more integrated and multifaceted approach to dealing with it. Perhaps new anti-inflammatory drugs will become the next generation of antidepressants. Maybe we don't even need drugs. We could use nerve-stimulating devices to treat inflamed depressions. Or perhaps use inflammatory biofeedback as a biomarker to monitor and manage our stress level, since we know stress is also a major source of inflammation. Improvement in any of these areas will significantly benefit many, many lives. And finally, here is my thought. Being a mother of a child with allergies, I certainly feel the mystery when it comes to our own immune system. And very often I feel very, very powerless against it. Like, when my son experienced some mysterious allergic reactions post-COVID, there was nothing we could do about it apart from dosing up on antihistamine or always have our EpiPen with us. And that's pretty much the advice that doctors give us consistently, no matter how many we see them. There's nothing else they can offer us. And nothing more doctors can do in terms of treating it either. Occasionally, there will be doctors that offer us food challenges to help train my son's body to be more tolerant of his allergens. But there will always be, other immunologists equally knowledgeable telling us about the risk that, our body might actually develop new allergies after overcoming the old one. Or, even immunologists tell us to avoid food that shows positive in my son's IgG test. So it's not IgE. IgE means like peanut allergy where it shows direct, immediate allergic reactions. IgG the idea is that it has a delayed or slow reactions. So you don't see it. And sometimes the symptoms are just feeling drowsy or feeling tired. It's not those fast response allergic reactions. But the idea is to help my son reduce inflammation in his body. But guarantee you there always be other immunologists saying that IgG test is a complete nonsense. It's just a commercial scam, without any medical significance. So confusion is the word I would use to describe dealing with any immune diseases. So I really hope with advancements in medical technology and research, or even our perspective and thinking, more light can be shed on our immune system in terms of, how it works, how we can handle it, not only for patients with depression, but for all patients with immune diseases. And yes, hopefully, whatever mysterious pain my son is experiencing right now can just quickly go away. All right, that's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do, please subscribe to our podcast, YouTube, or Spotify. I would really, really love to hear from you. Okay, let's continue learning. Enjoy our bubble tea. Don't forget to tune in this Friday as well for the East Asia This Week. Until next time, bye!